The Hall of Light was larger than anything the human soldier had ever seen. It was carved from pale crystal that glowed softly, as if the walls themselves were alive. Tall alien nobles stood in perfect rows, their long robes flowing like liquid metal. Floating banners showed symbols of an empire older than human space travel. This was not a place for mistakes. The human stood near the back with the other security soldiers. His armor was clean but simple, painted in dull gray. No medals, no rank worth noticing. His name was Ethan Hale, and he was here only because someone needed extra guards. He kept his hands relaxed near his weapon and his eyes alert, the way training had taught him. He did not look at the throne unless required. This gathering was meant to be peaceful. A ceremony to celebrate the alliance between humanity and the Velari Empire. Humans were new to the galaxy. Weak, many said. Small fleets, short history, fragile bodies, but they had survived. That alone had drawn attention. At the center of the hall stood the royal family. The Velari Emperor was tall and broad, his skin shining like polished stone. Beside him stood the Empress, calm and watchful. Between them was their daughter, Princess Sarilith. She was younger than Ethan expected. Her eyes were bright silver and they moved slowly across the room, studying everyone. Unlike the nobles, she wore no heavy jewelry. Her presence was quiet, but it pressed on the air like a held breath. The High Speaker announced the final ritual. Princess Sarilith will now affirm her intent before the court. This was expected. She would speak words of peace. Perhaps select an alien noble to represent unity. No one thought much about it. Sarilith stepped forward. The room went silent. She did not look at the nobles. She did not look at her parents. Her gaze moved past the bright robes and powerful figures, past the diplomats and commanders. Her eyes stopped on Ethan. His heart jumped. He felt it in his chest, sudden and hard. He froze, unsure if he should move or bow or look away. Her eyes did not leave him. Slowly the princess raised her hand. She pointed. "I want him," she said. The words were clear, calm, certain. The hall exploded into noise. Voices rose in shock. Nobles turned, searching for who she meant. When they realized, confusion turned into anger. Many stared at Ethan as if he were a disease that had appeared in the middle of sacred ground. Ethan felt every eye on him. His mouth went dry. His mind struggled to understand what was happening. The Emperor stepped forward. "Daughter," he said, keeping his voice controlled, "you must clarify your meaning." "I have," Sarilith replied. "I choose the human." The Empress's eyes narrowed slightly. "For what purpose?" Sarilith did not answer right away. She kept her hand raised, still pointing. "Because the future bends around him." That made the hall fall silent again. The Emperor looked at Ethan for the first time, not with anger, with deep focus. "Bring the human forward," the Emperor said. 2 guards approached Ethan. They did not grab him, but their presence left no choice. Ethan walked forward, his boots echoing in the massive hall. Every step felt unreal, like he had stepped into someone else's life. He stopped several meters from the throne and stood straight, just as training demanded. "I am Ethan Hale," he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. "Human Defense Force, assigned security." The Emperor studied him from head to toe. "You are unremarkable," Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir." A few nobles scoffed. Sarilith turned to her father. "That is why." Murmurs spread again. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing them. "You will explain," he said. "Now." Sarilith lowered her hand and finally looked at her parents. "Our people see strength as brightness, power, loud action. But the galaxy does not end because of loud things. It ends because of quiet ones, slow failures, small choices." She turned back to Ethan. "This human carries many small choices. None of them were selfish." Ethan had no idea what she was talking about. The Empress stepped closer. "You claim this one matters more than our nobles." "Our warriors." "I claim he matters differently," Sarilith said. The Emperor's eyes hardened. "This ceremony is suspended." The hall erupted again, louder this time. Ethan was escorted away before he could speak again. His legs felt heavy as he was led through twisting corridors of crystal and light. His mind replayed the moment again and again. The pointing finger, the words, "I want him." He was placed in a quiet chamber guarded by elite Velari soldiers. They were taller than him, stronger, their armor advanced beyond anything human engineers could build. Yet they treated him with calm respect. Hours passed. Finally, the door opened. Princess Sarilith entered alone. Ethan stood immediately. "Your Highness." She studied him closely now without an audience. Her silver eyes seemed softer. "You are afraid," she said. "Yes," Ethan answered honestly. She nodded. "Good. Fear means you understand risk." "I don't understand anything else," he said. "Why me?" She walked to the window looking out at the stars. "Tell me something, Ethan Hale. Why did you join your defense force?" He hesitated. "My colony was attacked when I was young, pirates. We lost a lot of people. I couldn't stop it. I wanted to make sure others wouldn't feel that helpless." Sarilith turned back to him. "You were offered promotions." "Yes." "You refused them." "Yes." "Why?" "I didn't want to command people into danger if I wasn't willing to stand there myself." She nodded slowly. "That choice appears often." Ethan frowned. "In what?" "In the paths I see." She explained then, carefully and simply. Her species could sense emotional weight across time. Not exact futures, but strong patterns. Some beings created ripples that vanished quickly. Others created quiet currents that shaped everything around them. Ethan's life was full of such currents. He had once stayed behind to hold a door so civilians could escape, even when it meant injury. He had shared rations without being asked. He had disobeyed an order to abandon a damaged ship and instead helped save it, accepting punishment afterward. None of these actions were famous. All of them mattered. "The galaxy is approaching a breaking point," Sarilith said. "Empires will fail because they cling to pride. Species will vanish because they choose survival over compassion." She looked at him directly. "In every path where life endures, you are present." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not a hero." "I know," she said. "Heroes burn too bright. You endure." Outside the chamber, politics moved like a storm. Nobles demanded explanations. Some demanded punishment. Others feared the princess's words. Humans were summoned. Diplomats argued. Military leaders worried. Ethan remained confined, questioned repeatedly, tested in subtle ways. He never lied, never tried to impress. He answered simply, honestly, sometimes saying he did not know. That unsettled the Velari more than arrogance ever could. One cycle later, the palace alarm sounded. An unknown force breached the outer defenses. Not a full invasion, a test. Chaos spread through the lower levels. Civilians fled, guards repositioned. Ethan was still unarmed when the chamber shook violently. One guard was thrown aside by debris. Another fell, injured. Without thinking, Ethan moved. He dragged the injured guard to cover. He picked up a fallen weapon he barely understood and used it to seal a breach, buying time. When smoke filled the hall, he guided others through it, coughing but steady. Sarilith watched from above through security feeds. He never looked back. By the time the attack was repelled, several lives had been saved because one human refused to freeze. Later, when the court gathered again, the atmosphere had changed. The Emperor spoke quietly. The human acted without command. "Yes," Sarilith said, "as always." The Empress closed her eyes briefly, and that is why he frightens them. Ethan stood before the throne once more, exhausted and confused. "You did not seek glory," the Emperor said. "You did not seek reward." "No, sir." The Emperor looked at his daughter. "Your choice has caused instability." Sarilith stepped beside Ethan, not above him. "My choice prevents collapse." The Emperor studied them both. The quiet human, the calm princess. At last he spoke. "The matter is not finished." Ethan was escorted away again, but this time the guards walked beside him, not behind. And across the stars, something ancient stirred, as if noticing for the first time that humanity had arrived. not loudly, not proudly, but in a way that could not be ignored. Part 1 of Ethan Hale's story ended not with celebration, but with uncertainty. And in the galaxy, uncertainty was often the beginning of everything. The days after the palace attack passed slowly, but the air inside the Velari capital had changed. The shining halls still looked calm, but beneath the beauty, tension grew. Whispers followed every noble. Guards stood closer to their weapons, and at the center of all that unease was one quiet human soldier. Ethan Hale was no longer kept in a single guarded room. Instead, he was allowed to move through limited areas of the palace under watch. This was not kindness, it was observation. The Velari wanted to see him when he did not know he was being tested. Ethan felt it. He was not foolish. Every step, every word, every small action felt weighed. He did not try to act important. He helped where he could. When he saw palace workers struggling to repair damage from the attack, he offered his hands. When Velari guards trained, he watched silently, learning their patterns, respecting their space. He spoke only when spoken to, and when he did, he chose honesty over safety. That honesty confused them. Many Velari nobles had expected a human who would boast, or beg, or attempt to use the princess's interest for power. Ethan did none of that. When questioned about his future, he said he did not know. When asked what reward he wanted, he said he wanted nothing. Princess Sarilith watched him closely. She spent long hours in the observation chamber, surrounded by softly glowing symbols that only her kind could read. The future paths twisted more violently now. Dark shapes pressed closer. The ancient threat she had sensed since childhood was no longer distant. It was awake, and always in the paths where life survived, Ethan was there, sometimes wounded, sometimes tired, sometimes afraid, never absent. Her parents noticed her concern. "You are growing restless," the Empress said one evening as they watched the city lights below. "Is your vision unclear?" "It is clear," Sarilith replied. "That is what troubles me." The Emperor folded his arms. "The human's presence has caused unrest among our allies. Some believe you have been influenced. Others believe humanity plans to manipulate us." Sarilith turned to face him. "And what do you believe?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "I believe the human does not understand his importance. That makes him dangerous." Sarilith nodded. "To our pride, yes." Meanwhile, the human delegation struggled. Human diplomats argued carefully, trying to protect Ethan without angering the Empire. They knew how fragile humanity's position was. A single wrong word could end alliances or worse. Ethan was called before a joint council. Velari nobles sat high, their presence heavy. Humans sat lower, smaller, but determined. A Velari lord spoke sharply. "This human acted without command during the attack. Such behavior is unpredictable." A human commander replied calmly. "That unpredictability saved lives." Another Velari noble hissed, "or risked more." Ethan was allowed to speak. "I didn't think," he said simply. "I saw people in danger, I moved." The council fell quiet. "You disobeyed protocol," a Velari general said. "Yes." "You risked diplomatic incident." "Yes." "Would you do it again?" Ethan met his gaze. "If someone needed help." Some Velari shifted uncomfortably. They were used to loyalty to structure, to command, to hierarchy. This human spoke loyalty to people, not systems. After the council, Ethan was dismissed. That night another test came. Not an attack, not openly. A power failure struck a residential wing. Lights died, doors sealed. Panic spread among non-combatants. Velari systems were complex. Their engineers were delayed. Ethan was nearby. He did not wait for orders. He remembered old colony drills, manual overrides, emergency routing. He guided Velari civilians through dark halls, using hand signals and comm words. When a child froze in fear, Ethan knelt and spoke softly until she moved again. By the time power returned, no one was hurt. Security footage spread quietly through the palace. The phrase began to circulate among the guards. The human does not shine, he steadies. Princess Sarilith met Ethan again in private. You are being tested, she said. I know. You could fail by trying too hard. I know, she studied his face. You do not resent this, Ethan thought carefully. I don't like being watched, but if it helps people stay safe, I can accept it. She smiled slightly. That answer remains consistent. Beyond the palace, the galaxy moved closer to disaster. Outposts went silent. Ancient machines stirred in dead systems. Entire fleets vanished without battle. The threat had no face yet, only absence. The Velari High Council convened emergency sessions. War plans were drawn. Traditional strategies were prepared. Sarilith listened. Her unease grew. She saw those futures too. They all failed. Finally, she spoke during a closed council. Our strategies are too rigid, she said. We prepare to fight what we understand. A general replied, we have defeated all known enemies. This one is not known, she answered. The emperor turned to her. You believe the human sees what we cannot. No, she said. I believe humans survive what others cannot. She requested something unprecedented. That Ethan Hale be allowed to attend strategic discussions. The council reacted with outrage. He is not trained, they argued. He is not Velari. He is not noble. The emperor raised a hand. Enough, he looked at his daughter. This choice will bind our fate to humanity. Sarilith met his eyes. It already is. Reluctantly, they agreed. Ethan entered the strategy chamber feeling completely out of place. Holographic stars filled the air. Massive fleets moved in perfect patterns. Velari commanders spoke of precision, overwhelming force, decisive strikes. Ethan listened. Then he spoke. What happens if your enemy doesn't care about loss? The room stilled. A commander scoffed. All enemies care about loss. Humans have met some that didn't, Ethan said. And we learned something. Sarilith watched closely. When you can't scare them, Ethan continued, you don't try to break them fast. You slow them down, you stretch them. You make them choose between targets. He spoke of evacuation corridors, of layered retreats, of buying time rather than claiming victory. These are defensive ideas, a noble said coldly. Yes, Ethan replied, because survival comes before pride. The words hung in the air. After the meeting, some Velari dismissed him. Others remembered. That night, Sarilith's visions shifted. The paths where Ethan's ideas were followed grew brighter. Not easy, not glorious, but alive. The ancient threat finally revealed itself. A vast construct entered Velari space. Not a fleet, not a ship. Something old and massive, harvesting energy and matter alike. Panic spread. Traditional fleets prepared to strike. Ethan stood beside Sarilith as alarms rang through the palace. Your people want to face it head-on, he said. They always have, she replied. And that's why they die in most of your visions. Yes, the emperor gave the order to mobilize. Sarilith turned to her father. Let the human speak. The emperor hesitated, then nodded. Ethan spoke clearly, calmly, to an empire listening for the first time to a quiet voice. Don't rush, he said. Save who you can, fight when you must, retreat when you should. Let it chase shadows while people live. The emperor closed his eyes, then he gave a new order. Evacuations began, fleets repositioned. Traps were laid not to kill but to slow. The ancient construct advanced, and for the first time it did not consume everything in its path. It hesitated. Somewhere deep within the palace, Sarilith watched the futures change. They were still dangerous, still painful, but now there was hope. She looked at Ethan Hale, the human who did not seek to be chosen, and understood that the galaxy's greatest strength had never been dominance. It had been endurance. And the final test was still coming. The ancient construct moved slowly through Velari space, but its presence felt heavy, like a shadow that could swallow stars. It did not attack fleets directly. It did not chase glory. It consumed energy, matter, and signals, leaving silence behind. Entire systems went dark without a single explosion. The Velari Empire had never faced something like this. Their fleets followed the new orders. They did not rush forward. They protected evacuation routes. They set traps meant to delay, not destroy. Every action felt wrong to many commanders, but the Emperor's command was clear. Survival first. Ethan Hale stood on the command deck of a Velari flagship, surrounded by beings far older and more advanced than him. He felt small, but he did not feel useless. He watched data streams, listening more than he spoke. Princess Sarilith stood beside him. Her calm steadied the room. "The construct is adapting," a Velari officer reported. "It is learning to ignore false targets." Ethan nodded slowly. That was always going to happen. A commander turned to him sharply. "Then your plan fails." "No," Ethan said. "It changes." He pointed to the star map. "It follows energy patterns, big ones, predictable ones, so stop being predictable." Silence followed. Sarilith understood first. "Scatter," she said. "Small signals, human style." Human ships moved differently from Velari ones. Less elegant, less powerful, but flexible, independent, willing to operate alone. The Emperor authorized it. Across the region, human and Velari ships broke into small units. They spread out, acting as guides rather than walls. The construct slowed further, its massive system struggling to decide what mattered. For the first time, it was confused, but confusion did not mean defeat. The construct responded by releasing smaller machines, fragments of itself that hunted evacuation lines. Casualties rose. Even with the new strategy, people died. Ethan felt each loss like a weight. During a briefing, a Velari noble snapped. "This human plan costs lives." Ethan met his gaze. "So did yours. The difference is now some live." The noble said nothing more. Sarilith's visions grew darker and brighter at the same time. The paths twisted violently now. The end was close. Either the construct would drain the region dry or something drastic would change its course. There was one future that stood out, one where Ethan did not walk away. She said nothing at first. The final idea came from an unexpected place. A damaged human frigate limped back to the fleet, its captain injured. The ship's logs showed something strange. When the construct drained its power core, the feedback damaged one of its internal systems. Not enough to stop it, but enough to matter. Ethan studied the data late into the cycle. "It hurts when it eats too much at once," he said quietly. A Velari engineer frowned. "It should be immune." "It isn't," Ethan replied. "It just learned to avoid pain by spreading it out." Sarilith's eyes widened slightly. "If it eats too much," Ethan continued, "it destabilizes, not fatally, but long enough." "Enough for what?" the Emperor asked. Ethan took a breath. "Enough to trap it." The plan that followed was simple and terrible. They would offer the construct a feast. A massive energy source. Artificial, overloaded, tempting. And someone would have to stay behind to trigger it at the right moment. The room went quiet. Velari commanders argued. Volunteers were suggested. Calculations were made. Sarilith already knew the outcome. Ethan spoke before anyone else could. "I'll do it." The Emperor stood abruptly. "No, I understand human systems better than anyone here," Ethan said, "and I won't hesitate when it's time." Sarilith turned to her father. "This is the path." The Empress looked at Ethan. "You will not survive." Ethan nodded. "I know." The Emperor looked at his daughter, pain clear in his ancient eyes. "This is why you chose him." "Yes," Sarilith said softly. "Not because he lives, because he chooses." Preparations began immediately. A station was built from combined human and Velari technology. It pulsed with energy, deliberately unstable. The construct turned toward it almost at once. As the fleets pulled back, Ethan boarded the station alone. Sarilith accompanied him to the airlock. "You were never meant to be alone," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. "Humans get used to it." She placed her hand against the barrier between them. "If there were another way—" "There isn't," he said gently, "and that's okay." For the first time, her voice trembled. "The galaxy will remember you." I don't need that, Ethan replied. Just make sure they remember each other. The airlock sealed. The construct arrived like a living night, its vast form blotting out stars. Energy streams flowed toward it, drawn from the station like blood to a wound. Alarms screamed. Ethan moved through the station, manually overriding safeties, guiding the overload exactly where it needed to go. His hands shook not from fear, but from exhaustion. The construct fed, too much, its systems flared violently, internal structures locked. For a moment it stopped moving. Now, Ethan said into the open channel. The Velari fleets activated the trap. Gravity fields collapsed inward. Containment grids snapped shut. The construct struggled, tearing at itself. The overload reached critical. Ethan closed his eyes. Far away, Princess Saralith watched the futures collapse into one. The explosion was not bright. It was quiet. When sensors cleared, the construct was gone. Not destroyed, but folded into itself, trapped beyond reach. Silence spread across the region. The war was over. Days later, the Velari capital held a gathering unlike any before. There was no celebration, only reflection. Humans stood beside Velari as equals. The Emperor spoke to the galaxy. Today, we live because a human chose others over himself. Let this be remembered not as weakness, but as strength. Princess Saralith stepped forward. She did not speak of destiny or visions. She spoke of choice. Humanity does not conquer, she said. They endure, and because they endure, so do we. A memorial was placed among the stars, simple and quiet. Ethan Hale's name was etched there without title or rank, just human. Years later, when new threats whispered at the edge of known space, fleets remembered the lesson learned. Survive first, stand together, and never underestimate the quiet ones. The galaxy did not change because a princess pointed. It changed because a human stood still long enough for everyone else to move forward. And that was enough.